What is up, guys? MCMMA here. In today's video, I'm going to be matchmaking the welterweight division after UFC Fight Night Tsarukyan versus Hooker. With both UFC 322 and this most recent fight night, we have basically sorted out who deserves the next title shot, who's going to be fighting for like number one contender spot, all that stuff. And there's a ton of contenders in the welterweight division. I mean, there are probably four guys that you could argue deserve a title shot right now. And that's not even counting Kamaru Usman, who has also been calling for a shot. He doesn't deserve one. But yeah, let's just get right into these matches to make. All right, first off, we have got a confirmed fight for the last fight night of the year. Former Bellator welterweight champion Yaroslav Amosov is coming over, and he's going to face Neil Magny in his UFC debut. Amosov is, I believe, 28-1. He's only got one loss in his entire pro MMA career. A lot of people were thinking that he might get a ranked opponent in his UFC debut, but I think with how competitive the division is right now, the UFC couldn't really afford to give him a big name in his first fight. So instead, they're going to give him the classic gatekeeper in Neil Magny. Magny's on a little bit of a resurgence lately. He's coming off 2 wins in a row against Zaleski dos Santos and Jake Matthews. And yeah, this should be a really interesting fight. If Amosov is able to beat Magny, then that means he's probably a top 15 fighter in the division. And then if Magny beats him, I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised. That'd just be a classic Neil Magny fraud check. So yeah, I'm excited to see this one. All right, next up, I think that number 15, Daniel Rodriguez, should fight Rinat Fakhretdinov. D-Rod he's also on a 2-fight win streak with wins over Santiago Ponzinibbio and Kevin Holland. But to be totally honest, I don't understand how the hell this guy managed to crawl back into the rankings. He is not one of the 15 best welterweights in the UFC, that's for sure. And that Kevin Holland fight was a sick fight, probably one of the best fights of the year. But I mean, Kevin Holland's so unreliable. So I don't think D-Rod is like back or anything. I don't think he's making any kind of comeback. As for Rinat, he's a guy who's kind of been on the edge of the rankings for a little while at this point. He probably would have got a ranked opponent already if it weren't for the kind of controversy surrounding a lot of his wins. Both his wins over Nicholas Dalby and Carlos Leal were pretty controversial. A lot of people thought that Dalby and especially Leal won those fights. But Rinat did come back with a big win against Andreas Gustafsson. I think that was at UFC 316. Got a knockout within the first minute of the fight, so not much doubt around that one. And yeah, he definitely deserves a ranked opponent at this point, so I think a fight against D-Rod would make a lot of sense. All right, next up, I think that number 14, Jeff Neal, should face Yoel Alvarez. Jeff Neal, kind of in a tough spot right now. He is on he's not on a losing streak, but he's lost a lot of I think he's lost 3 or 4 of his last 5 fights, and his only win recently was against Rafael dos Anjos when RDA blew out his knee. So does that win even really count that much? I don't know. And Yoel Alvarez recently moved up to the welterweight division after going on a pretty good run at lightweight. He just beat Vicente Luque by unanimous decision at UFC Rio. That was a fight that probably could have been stopped at multiple points. And it's Alvarez's only decision win, I think, is in his entire career, if not his UFC career. But Yoel is definitely a guy who deserves a top 15 opponent. He's a super exciting fighter, super fun to watch. I'm really excited to see how he does at welterweight. And I think that a fight with Jeff Neal makes a lot of sense because at this point, Jeff Neal's basically a gatekeeper. He's going to keep getting tough, unranked opponents, to be totally honest. So, yeah, I think this would be a good test for Yoel Alvarez. All right, I think next up, at number 12 ranked Gilbert Burns should face number 13 ranked Colby Covington. Now, in terms of actually moving the division along, this probably isn't the best matchup, but I think this would be a pretty fun one, and I think the build-up would be pretty entertaining too. These are both guys who are pretty washed at this point. They're both on decent little losing streaks. Although I will give Gilbert credit, he is facing tough-ass opponents fight in and fight out. I mean, he's fought Bilal, JDM, Sean Brady, Michael Morales. Those guys are all like top 5 contenders in the division, basically. I can't cut Colby as much slack since he's both super inactive and he's fighting worse competition. But I think this would be a good matchup between 2 of the unks of the division. I know these guys don't like each other, that's for sure. So I think that the build-up would be pretty funny. You could maybe make this like a fight night main event. Maybe not, but like I think this would be a good build-up. So I would like to see this fight next. And I mean, hopefully we'll get Gilbert a win here. That's kind of the goal, because I think that Gilbert is better than Colby Covington at this point. So hopefully this is a fight that he can win. All right, next up, I think that number 10 ranked Joaquin Buckley should face number 11 Gabriel Bonfim. Buckley is coming off of his first loss at welterweight against Kamaru Usman earlier this year. Kind of got ragdolled, dominated pretty thoroughly on the ground. And Bonfim is on a 3-fight winning streak with wins over Wonder Boy, and most recently he knocked out Randy Brown in pretty impressive fashion. So I think that this is a fight that makes a lot of sense for both of these guys. Buckley doesn't deserve another fight up the rankings after losing in the way that he did against Kamaru Usman, and Bonfim deserves to get pushed up a little bit after a couple wins. He also took a fight against an unranked fighter in his last one, so you gotta reward him a little bit for that. I think this matchup makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a pretty close matchup. I've said before, I think Joaquin Buckley's fairly overrated, so I think that, especially like striking wise, his striking's really sloppy. He kind of just swings really hard, and that's about it. And Bonfim, super dangerous on the ground, and he showed in the Randy Brown fight that he's got some pretty good hands too. So this could be a really good fight. I would like to see this as probably a fight night main event, since I think this should probably be a 5-round fight. So I think this one is very likely to happen too. So I would like to see this fight next. All right, as for number 9, Leon Edwards, I think that he should face the winner of Buckley versus Bonfim. Leon's in a really tough spot right now. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. The last 2 of those losses coming by finish, and he just got knocked out cold by Carlos Prates at UFC 322. So he's definitely going to need to take some time off after that one. And I think that once he comes back, he's also not going to get a fight up the rankings. So I think a fight against the winner of Bonfim versus Buckley would make a lot of sense. I think that this could definitely be a winnable fight for Leon, since I don't think the guy's totally washed or anything. He's just been facing really tough competition and stylistic matchups in his past few fights. So I think that this could be a very winnable fight for Leon. And as much as the guy gets shit on, and I mean, I think some of the hate's funny sometimes, but he doesn't entirely deserve it. He was a solid champ. He beat Kamaru Usman twice. You have to give him credit for that. And I think he's a little overhated, so I would like to see him get a win in his next fight. All right, next up, I think that number 7 ranked Sean Brady should fight the loser of JDM versus Shavkat. I know this kind of spoils some of the future picks, but yeah, I am matching up JDM with Shavkat. And I think Sean Brady should fight the loser of that one. This is another one where I think Brady is probably going to take a little bit of time off after getting battered by Michael Morales in his last fight. And I think that a JDM versus Shavkat fight would make sense early next year, since although JDM got dominated by Islam, it didn't seem like he took too much damage. And Shavkat is healing up from his injuries, and he said he'd be ready to go early next year. So this is a fight that you could probably make for like mid next year. I think that would make sense for Brady's timeline. And I think this would be a pretty good matchup, since, especially if it's JDM, I think it'd be a very winnable fight for Sean Brady because of the grappling advantage that he has. All right, next up, I think that number 5 ranked Bilal Muhammad should take on number 8 ranked Kamaru Usman. In my opinion, this fight should have happened before. This fight should have happened before Bilal fought Ian Gary. But I think from what Bilal said, and it kind of makes sense, I think Kamaru Usman was kind of ducking the fight, since he seems to think he's going to get an immediate title shot. That is not happening, Kamaru. Just to make that very clear, you are not getting a title shot, buddy. So he needs another win. I think a fight against Bilal would make a ton of sense. I think this is a super interesting matchup stylistically, and I also think this is another one where the buildup would be pretty funny, since these guys like genuinely hate each other. You don't see like too much real beef nowadays, but these guys genuinely hate each other. They got into a fight one time. I think it was when Bilal came on Kamaru and Henry Cejudo's podcast, and they got into a fight. But yeah, they genuinely don't like each other. Kamaru needs another win if he wants a title shot. So I think a fight against Bilal would make a ton of sense. All right, next up, I think that number 4 ranked Michael Morales should take on number 6 ranked Carlos Prates. I know I said earlier that I thought Michael Morales was going to deserve the next title shot, but I think Ian Gary's resume is a lot stronger than Morales's, and I think that in terms of publicity and popularity, Ian Gary is pretty far ahead of Morales. So I think that the UFC is going to pick Gary to get the next title shot, and I'm not mad at it. In terms of who deserves it more, I think Morales and Gary are fairly even. So I think this would be an amazing fight to make in the meantime. Michael Morales versus Carlos Prates. This would be one of the sickest. I mean, this is one of the sickest matchups that I can like possibly think of at welterweight. I mean, two amazing strikers, two guys with insane power, two guys who are on an absolute roll right now. I mean, please make this fight. This would be such a sick fight. Fight night main event or like a co-main of a pay-per-view. Just make sure this. I mean, this should be a 5-rounder for sure. But yeah, I would love to see this fight, and I'm sure a lot of you guys would too. All right, next up, I think that the number 1 ranked contender and former champ, Jack Della Maddalena, should face number 3 ranked Shavkat Rakhmonov. Now, this has been a fight that's like kind of been in the works for a little while. After Shavkat beat Wonder Boy back a few years ago, and JDM beat Gilbert Burns, JDM had been calling out Shavkat a lot. And at the time, that was a fight that I wanted to see. I was super excited for that one, and I still do. This is still a sick matchup because Shavkat, I mean, striking-wise, JDM's definitely a better striker, but Shavkat would be able to compete. I think he would be able to compete on the feet. And after seeing the Islam fight, I would have a lot more optimism about Shavkat's grappling and how he would be and how successful he would be in landing takedowns. So I would love to see this fight. Shavkat, I think with his win over Ian Gary, he would normally deserve a title shot, but I think with the number of contenders, especially active contenders that there's been at welterweight, and I know Shavkat's been hurt, but he has been out for a while, so I do think he's going to need another win before he comes back, and I think a fight against JDM would make a ton of sense. All right, last but not least, I think that the new champion, Islam Makhachev, should take on number 2 ranked Ian Gary. Islam, as we know, coming off of that dominant win over JDM, it was a pretty boring fight, but, I mean, if you're a fighter and you can take the path of least resistance, I mean, why not? And Ian Gary, also coming off of a pretty solid win over Bilal Muhammad. I thought that Ian Gary won that fight 30-27. I've seen some people online saying that Bilal got robbed. That's a horrible take. Bilal won at most 1 round. And it was another pretty impressive performance from Gary. His striking looked good, especially his takedown defense looked really good. And I think this is definitely the fight that's going to be next. You can market it as Dagestan versus Ireland 3. Ian Gary cut a pretty good promo in his post-fight interview after beating Bilal. And, I mean, love him or hate him, he is a pretty big name at this point, and he is going to bring a lot of attention to this fight. So I think this fight would make a ton of sense. This one's probably going to happen around, like, early mid next year. Hopefully earlier because of just how stacked the division is right now. But we know Islam isn't necessarily the most active fighter, so I think that there's a pretty decent chance that this one could probably headline like International Fight Week or something. But regardless of when it is, make this fight. The build-up would be great. Ian Gary would definitely talk a lot of shit, draw a lot of attention to the fight. And, I mean, I still think Islam would win, but Gary's takedown defense has been looking pretty good, so he could make it interesting. I don't know. Anyways, those are my fights to make in the welterweight division right now. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of these fights that I made. As always, leave a like on the vid, subscribe to the channel, and thank you guys for watching.